So I believe that our songbird, Julia Ostroff, is going to sing us in and out today. Is that correct, Julia?
Beautiful.
Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And let me open your text.
Great.
What will you be sharing with us today?
So this is a setting of Psalm 5 by Rabbi Shir Yaakov Fate. And Cantor Niami has introduced us to the fact that this rabbi is creating a psalm a day. He began, I guess, on March 20th because he wrote this one on March 25th.
He began, I think, a day after we did.
Wow. Yeah. So
I don't know if you remember, but way back at the beginning, I brought his first one.
I might have missed that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And he's a rabbi. He founded and is the rabbi at Kol Chai Synagogue in New Paltz in the Hudson Valley. And a lot of his work these are very meditative, and this one is just very beautiful. Va'ani berov chastecha avo beitecha ashtachave el heichal kodshecha beiratecha va'ani berov chastecha avo beitecha ashtachave el heichal kodshecha beiratecha boker tishma koli boker erach lecha ba'atzapeh boker tishma koli boker erach lecha ba'atzapeh va'ani berov chastecha avo beitecha ashtachave el heichal kodshecha beiratecha.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I agree with Julia, that's really he posts every day on his Facebook page. And I think he's now in the 50 Psalms. He's in days, so it's really fun to follow his exploration. And as I said when I introduced him at the very beginning, what he's doing is similar to us and similar to the project that Ora Rose is talking about. In this moment, it's very classically Jewish to turn to the Psalms, and he as a composer and singer is doing it in the way, and I love that the particular verse he used, and he does his own translations, which are like what we're all doing, and very beautiful. Thank you for that. I really recommend people to follow him along if you're on Facebook, on his Facebook page also. And I think Harold is in communication with him, right? Harold? About inviting him to our class.
Checking us out. He may come visit us one day. He said to me, now, is that 10:45 in the morning or 9:45 in the morning or 9:45 in the evening? I said, yeah, it's 9:45.
Yeah, I'm in bed at 9:45 in the evening.
Yeah, so
let's just say, not my better teaching time.
Does he publish music, or do you just learn it from listening to his recording?
He does publish music. I don't think he's published any of these yet, but and we've done at CBST, I think we've done a couple of his settings. I'm trying to remember.
He's like me. He's slow to publish his music. He's not alone in that. There's many of us who are very slow to publish music, but he has some things that are out there. We Are Loved by an Unending Love is one of his. He has a Vahashe Vota that's really wonderful.
He has about 4 CDs of original music.
Yep.
The course, the Healer of the Brokenhearted is another one.
And I think, by the way, for those who are singers and care about this question about music online, he is, along with Yosef Goldman, our former intern, doing a program Monday night that I posted on my Facebook page. It looks fantastic, about how to do music and sing and deal with issues about music online. And that looks like and he's one of the presenters. Oh, this door. Sorry, hold on. Let me close the door in a different way.
Saul, you said freezing, it's for you. Different people have a different feed because everything's okay on my end.
All right, so today I think we're finishing our personal Psalms of Psalm 5 and either beginning Psalm 6 today or tomorrow. So
Yes,
let's
so
see where we are, right?
Ira
Harold?
Rosenberg, are you ready to go first?
Bloom.
Rosenbaum, sorry. Rosenblum.
I know. I get called
Rosenblum.
Bloom, everybody.
Rosenblum.
Oh, you,
Are you ready here?
I get called Kleinberg.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just as 2 days ago we started with someone who had done reflections on the entire class, Ira has something delightful to share with us, which reflects back on everything we have studied so far. So let me pull this up. Let me see, view full screen. Can everybody see the Psalm haikus? Yes, someone say yes. Okay, Ira.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll read these and then I can say a little bit about them. Psalm 1, sitting by the stream, firmly rooted in the earth, I taste contentment. Psalm 2, why does the mind rage? Sit, be still, pay attention, hear the voice of God. 3, listen to my voice, bring me comfort in my sleep. I long for blessing. 4, I call to you, God, bless me with loving kindness, fill my sleep with peace. 5, sunrise, hear my words, keep me from thinking evil, shield me with your love.
Wow. And this is so fantastic to take a haiku form. So, well, why don't you speak first and then I'll talk afterwards. I love this, Ira.
Thank you. So I did not set out intending to write haikus, but I noticed, at the beginning, for the first few days, I wanted to write and I was just like, just nothing was coming. I wasn't inspired. And then suddenly it came to me that, first of all, I did not have to recreate the entire psalm. Because I noticed when I was reading the Psalms that there would be like one kernel in them, one phrase, one image, one thought, one idea that really sort of got to my heart. And so I decided just to focus on that one thing in each of the Psalms and try and work that into a poem. And then the idea of distilling it into as few words as possible, that's when the idea of a haiku, which is 3 lines, the first line 5 syllables, the second line 7 syllables, and the third line 5 syllables. It came to me, and then it just sort of started to flow. The first one, for example, the image of the tree, or firmly rooted by the stream, really resonated with me on so many levels, and it brought back images from other religions. Particularly, I thought of the Buddha sitting by the Bodhi tree for, I think it was like 50 days or 49 days is where he achieved enlightenment. So it's like in each one of these, there was something that really just filled my heart. And I will say, in terms of, we talked about sort of repetition, that I did notice even in my own work, there were certain themes that were being repeated. And particularly, I'll say something just about the bringing me comfort in my sleep or filling my sleep with peace was very much in response to my personal struggle these last weeks during this lockdown of having very disrupted sleep, and not having restful and not being comforted in my sleep. So that really was like, please God, I need to sleep. So that was really the process. And I think I'm just going to keep going with this idea.
Yeah, I think it's so moving. And I think one thing that's so inspiring is you can see in all the different forms that come out from each of us, and each of us have expressed it very differently. There's something for others of us to learn from those forms. Do you know what I mean? Like if somebody's writing a long poem or something that's really based on the structure of the psalm, you learn something new. And here where Ira is going for the essence, the ikar, we call it in Hebrew, the ikar, the essence, you all of a sudden you say, wow, that's it. I get it in a new way. And I think, I have to say, I think one of the things that's going to become universally true from this pandemic experience is that issue about sleep, right? I mean, I think every one of us relates to that. And certainly in my speaking to people, myself personally, that whatever our circumstances, whether we're living alone or whether we're living with a lot of little children, whether we're living with a partner, whether we're living in a small apartment, wherever people are, the issue that this pandemic has affected, I think most deeply, whether or not we have COVID, separate from the medical realities, is no one is sleeping well or finding that peace and understanding what it would without medication, and finding that yearning for that kind of restorative sleep, and understanding what it is to not have it is profound. And it's obviously both literal and a metaphor. So that makes it so deep. And I just love, you're exploring another form of poetry from this particular form.
Thank
just
you.
Really beautiful. I do hope you keep going, Ira, but don't feel pressured. See what happens.
Okay.
Just let it be and let it sit with you. And Ira also, I think it's a good modeling of, and other people have talked about it. You kind of have to wait till it's the right thing to come out, and waiting and not being hard on yourself for not being able to do something. And then it comes out and look what you have. And which Psalm were we in, Ira, when you started actually writing? Because you didn't do this for when we were in the first Psalm, right?
Right. I think it was Psalm 3.
Yeah, so it took a little while.
Right.
Things need to churn and digest and ferment.
I should also just say, and I don't want to take up a lot more time, but I also have sat at my piano and just sort of doodled, thinking about the Psalms, which of course it's not something I'm easily able to share. So, but that's been another way of my exploring.
That's just beautiful. Beautiful, Ira. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're also running a little sleep clinic in the chat right now.
You are?
So Donna Gray, you are up first. If you would unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. Like Ira, I thought about writing long before I did, but nothing came. So.
Let me pull this up. Hold on just 1 second. I thought I had it.
Ruth Plave, you're somewhere beautiful. Look at that. Is that a picture from a trip you've been on, or?
Yeah, that's from my Italy trip.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Wrong thing. Hold on.
Think about beautiful thoughts.
All right, hold on.
Is that Tuscany?
Yes, actually, yeah.
All right, here we go.
God's place on earth, huh? One of those.
All right.
I had pasta last night, but that's as close as I got to Italy lately.
All right, this should do it. What pasta, Rabbi?
Angel hair. I like the really thin angel hair pasta.
Angel hair.
Mm-hmm.
A biblical pasta. All right. Okay, here we go. Everybody see Donna's psalm?
Yes.
All right, Donna, it is all you.
Okay. Dear God, I'm crying out to you. Do you hear my prayer? In the quiet of the morning, I take my time and lie still. With nowhere to go and nothing I have to do right now, I linger in the stillness and strain to hear your voice. Are you there? I'd like to think that you honor goodness and reject evil, that the debauchery of the wrongdoers has no standing in your eyes. But who are you with your big shot capital Y? Are you blind? Are you deaf? If you hate all the wrongdoers, why are they thriving? If you destroy the pronouncers of lies, why do you provide them with megaphones to advance their conspiracy theories? Why do you let them seduce the terrified into denial? Why do you bring the world to its knees with an invisible virus that has stopped what I thought was my world dead in its tracks? I like to believe that through your kindness, I might enter your house with a capital Y. I try to walk the path of tzedek, to do the right thing, and to cultivate the loving kindness of chesed. But am I a liar too? Am I a denier among all the other deniers, telling myself a story to drown out the Baba Misas? If evil exists in the world and I am part of the world, then evil exists in me too. That's what I fear. I pray to the higher self, you, but too often get lost in the lower self, you, of self-doubt and pettiness. I turn my inner gaze to the heavens and remember Hodaya, the gratitude muscle that needs a strengthening workout to avoid atrophy. I start my prayer again. Dear God, thank you for this day, for the privilege of having been born and the pleasure of being alive. Thank you for my home, for my comfortable bed, for plentiful food waiting in the kitchen. Thank you for work that allows me to help other people from the safety of my own space. Thank you for the dear companion who joins me in laughter as we binge through 6 years of Schitt's Creek in a matter of weeks. Thank you for the spiritual connection that reminds me who I am. My mother always said that God helps those who help themselves. I can't deny that I have more energy as I finish writing this psalm than before I started it. Zerizut, right action, is liberating. I wouldn't have told her this when she was alive, but she was right. Taking a step, even a baby step, unlocks the door so God can enter. Looking in the mirror these days, it's my mother's face that I see superimposed over my own. In my darkest moments, I want to cry out, Mommy! Maybe it's really to her that I'm crying out from the darkness. God is found in the light. Amen. Love, Donna.
Wow. Wow, Donna. Would you talk to us a little bit about it and about writing it?
Well, the first thing, when I see in the Psalms about God hating the evildoers, I go, what? How come they're in power and how come all these people are following them like blind sheep? It makes me very angry. And when I was not writing because I was resisting my own platitudes. I just didn't want to write them. And then, I find that for myself, allowing my anger and giving voice to it shakes me out of the lethargy I can fall into. And, I've been, quite frankly, up and down in this period, trying my best to stay positive, but not always succeeding. And sometimes I go to my dark places. And, I just thought that, there's something about, Psalms of gratitude that for me gets me to a place of being open to spirit and connection with God. And, the kvetching and pleading and supplicating is like a child crying out to mommy.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the underlying themes of Psalms and of other places as well in our literature, which is before we can understand what the omniscient, who is beyond our human sphere and ineffable and completely we can't understand, we start with the relationships that we know. And that feeling of crying out to some parental figure that has some power to make things better or worse, and hopefully they'll make them better, is so deep. And I think that's why we see that language so much. And I think what you're modeling here, Donna, is to be authentic, to be honest is what this is about, not the platitudes. And platitudes fall flat for any of us who hear them. They don't mean anything, but I'm sure most people who listen to you read that, it went right into our hearts because it was so deep and authentic and honest. And honesty, and I think this is what Or Rose said yesterday, which and that the Madeline Davis says in her writing as well. The power of the Psalms, although sometimes it's hard to see it without working through it like we are, is that it has all of those authentic feelings: anger at God, disappointment, fury, protest. All of it is there because those are authentic feelings. They're not, it's not rah rah God only. That's there too. And hopefully we can get to the rah rah praise exaltation, but a piece of our relationship with the world in which we live is fury and anger and disappointment and protest. And we feel it. The question is there a time frame? Is there a view that's longer than our own existence, which can only interpret what we see based on our own experiences? And can we imagine there might be an arc that's bigger than us? And that takes faith. And also there's no guarantees. I have nothing to prove that to you, right? That I believe that justice exists. It just might not exist in our own moment. And for sure, and as folks know, and you read literature or you talk to people who have lived through much worse times than we have, Viktor Frankl says it very clearly. The only thing that makes it possible to live through really difficult times and remain human is to have meaning in the suffering. Not that it's serving a purpose, but that we say, okay, I won't just suffer, but that I'll understand there's going to be something in it from which I have something to learn. What is it I have to learn? Sometimes it's about ourselves. Sometimes it's, and I'll keep going back to the great example that Shep gave us, which is a very concrete one, but we all have many examples themselves. When we're in the middle of the deepest of the suffering, it's awfully hard to say, okay, what am I going to learn from this? How am I going to grow as a human being? How am I going to become deeper or more thoughtful? When you're in the middle of the pain, that's a very hard thing. When you're beyond it by years, maybe many years, you can look back and say, okay, I've learned something deep that I wouldn't be the person I am had I not gone through that. So I feel like what faith gives us is, and I don't mean empty faith, you know me. I'm not talking about a stupid faith. I'm talking about is to say, okay, I'm suffering deeply right now, but I know from other places in my life that I have learned from suffering, and that suffering can be a teacher, that suffering is not the end of the story, and that I have to remember that there are places from which I've learned that. And that's hard. But Donna, I know you're very deep on these things, and this psalm is very, very profound. So thank you.
I want to give a nod to Rabbi Margolius's Tikkun Midot class, which all of those references to those Midot came straight from his class.
Fantastic. I'm so glad you're taking it. He's a very important teacher in our world. He's a person.
I'm enjoying it.
And these aren't ideas only, right? So he has suffered a lot in his life, and he's learned, and we've all suffered. And the question is, what do we do with it? Who do we become? How do we have something then to offer the world?
I just want to say one more thing, that when I started writing it, I was in a dark place.
I could feel that.
And when I finished writing it, that darkness had lifted, at least for the moment. So that thing about God helps those who help themselves, and remembering gratitude are key for me.
And that it's one small step. You don't jump into, you have to just keep believing and taking, and that's where faith comes from. And I think in Ira's haikus, we saw that too. There are small pieces that we do. We can't just turn the whole thing around. And that ability to take one small step towards wholeness is important. Okay, Ben.
Ben,
Hi,
are you here today? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I'm here today.
Good morning, Ben. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Thank you. Nice to see you back. Nice to be back. Okay. Before I read it, I want to say that this is something I actually written before we got into Psalm 5. But verse 3 in Psalm 5, it says, Ki elecha et palel, to you I pray, brought me up sharp and reminded me of this thing that I wrote. It was such a strong conflict. So in any case, let me read that. Shopping in the time of coronavirus. Pick it yourself cases all empty. No one wants to pick your pickings. Ghosts masquerading as human with masks glide by, properly keeping, at least attempting, 6 feet apart. Shelves bereft of merchandise. The politeness belies the desperation. I'm here because I need to, much rather not, but as long as. Life's way of normalizing tragedy normalizes this abomination too. I look around in pain and want to shout, don't you know my son is infected? Can't you sense my panic? To whom shall I direct my prayers now that the gods are all dead, killed by us?
Wow, very powerful. Ben, would you talk more about it?
I don't have a belief in a supernatural God,
Mm-hmm.
rather than believing that we are created in God's image. I believe that we created our gods in our image. And when I first came to the United States in the 50s, this country was, Reagan notwithstanding, the shiny city on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
Our institutions, our just everything about this country was trending towards the good and godly. And as I observed it as I stayed over here, I became more and more grounded in how good this country was. And then in the last 20 years or so, we've engaged in fratricide and killed everything that was good.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the reference that we killed our own gods.
Mm-hmm.
But when I wrote this, I really was in deep despair because the second one of my sons had come down with the coronavirus.
Oh.
Thank God they're both healthy now.
Uh-huh.
I'm over it. But I wrote it in the deepest of despairs.
Yeah. And that's an important place to create something like this. And thank you for it. Thank you for it. And how does it feel to have it as part of this collective?
I'm amazed that it is.
Mm-hmm. And we have to honor, we really honor, and the psalmist honors that level of despair, because that is, we are, and I think Donna mentioned it by rejecting platitudes. What I'll say it over and over again in as many ways as possible. Honesty is what makes the Psalms work. And you might react against pieces of it at a particular moment when you're reading something, because it's not honest for where you are at the moment, but it will be honest at another point in your life. Do you know what I mean? That it reflects, and that's the humility of reading the Psalms. And sometimes I read the Psalms and I feel like, oh my God, I am so not in this optimistic or faithful way, but it becomes aspirational. It reminds me that too exists in the range of human experience, not only the despair. That's why reading them collectively, I find very powerful, because sometimes when I read a Psalm, there are some verses in them which absolutely reflects exactly where I am, and other verses I kind of skim over because they're not where I am. And then another time I read them, it's the verses I skimmed over which speak most deeply to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so the despair I completely get, and I'm glad to hear. You have 2 sons, Ben?
3.
3. And 2 had COVID?
Right, one after the other.
Oh my God, and how old are they?
I forgot the middle-aged.
Yeah, okay, but they're both okay now.
They're fine, thank you.
Good, thank God, thank you. Okay, do we have another one?
Oh, yes, we certainly do.
Okay.
We've got embarrassment of riches now.
Wonderful.
Enter Nimi.
Oh, wonderful.
So it's been about a year and a half since I've written any poetry, so this has been really nice to engage in this way too. It's called When Will Morning Come? To the one who conducts flowing rivers and the buzzing of bees, a song for the beloved. Who will heed my unspoken words? Who will understand my silent murmurings? Who will listen when I cry out, prayers pushed through the cracked walls I have built around my heart? When will my voice be heard with yours, that majestic harmony of yearning and seeking? How long must we wait? When will morning come? O abundant and gracious love, lead me to your dwelling place, to that sanctuary with all my wounds and fears laid out before you, where even enemies may sing the song of righteousness. And when we find that place, that shelter, that refuge, free from chains of fear and darkness, let the chorus sing, that I may hear myself among them.
Beautiful. Tell us about writing this, Jacob.
So I wanted to just kind of pick apart some of the language in the psalm. I was really moved by a lot of the phrases, and now, you know, for me, approaching poetry now as opposed to when I started in like high school is so different, especially now being exposed to the Psalms and a whole bunch of other Jewish liturgical poetry as well. So I wanted to take David out for a moment, but I loved that his name is related to the word for beloved. So for me, that kind of expanded it.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes also think of God as the beloved, so that it just kind of opened it up for me and just let me kind of go into the text in a different way. The phrase I would really want to mention especially is prayers pushed through the cracked walls. I was trying to refresh my memory about the etymology of the verb lahitpalel, to pray. I remember there being quite a lot of depth in that word, and so when I looked it up, I discovered that in the book of Nehemiah, one of the people who was helping to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem was named Palal. And so like basically the same root letters. And this just drew my mind immediately to the image of prayer at the Kotel and the pieces of paper shoved into the cracks of the wall. And so I started to think about a more internal process, you know, walls that I've built in my own life, how music and prayer have really helped me push through the cracks, kind of show people what's going on inside. And that's been helpful for me in my life and in my work. And then finally, the end, this whole crisis that we've been in, where for those of us who find such deep connection to spirituality through music, the lack of ability to hear our voices with other voices is painful. And for me as a prayer leader, I find myself constantly song leading and prayer leading to silence. And it is an experience that I find jarring and uncomfortable and challenging constantly, as much as I feel deep connection to the people that I'm worshiping with.
And that you bring out from but by having that as a theme through your poem, you bring out the relationship of Psalms to song itself, that it's such a deep connection that those of us who are just reading the Psalms often can forget it, even though there's a word here or there. The word psalm means song. And this psalm in particular starts by a reference to music. And so we really can never separate the Psalms from music. Although we do, because we read them as poems on the page, we know that music is such a deep part of it. So I love that you bring that out through there. And I agree. I think this is one of the deep crises that we're in with the physical distancing, is the inability to hear our voices joining together. That is so profound. And it's a really it's going to be jarring when we can do it again. It's going to be a really interesting moment when we have that rush of hearing all those voices singing together. So thank you for this, Jacob. And I just love your parsing out words. And if we had time now, I would love to go back and compare what you did with the Hebrew, because I see there's some very interesting plays you did with the language. And you can see that you could do different things when you write your own poem. Either you could really take the language of the original psalm and really work it through, or you can fly off completely far away from it. And both and all are very, very legitimate responses to the psalm. So thank you, Jacob. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Judith.
Hi. The buzz in my head, louder and louder and louder, blocking the gentle breeze of my smiles and your laugh. A violent wind clouding my thoughts, louder and louder and louder. Incessant self-criticism. Why can't I tolerate that talk around me about the plague and the future and what to watch out for, and lectures on self-care and all the questions? Please stop talking. Please stop lecturing. You are making things worse. Others appreciate while I can hardly breathe. And when I share my angst, others scoff. They are trying to help, they say. Help whom, I wonder, certainly not me. I envy their relief. How do I soften and soften and soften my harsh taskmaster, the harshest, me? I will need more than earplugs to block the buzz. I need more than a respirator to get oxygen to my lungs. Minutes pass, a new day, or the same old, same old. A small step towards change. Blocking is no longer an option. The buzz softens and softens and softens. I feel embraced by a comfort emanating from within. The sense of being loved becomes my shield from old habits and thoughts. A shield from the chaos of life, from deliberate slights and inadvertent mistakes. Backslides in progress make up a life, but love emanating from within becomes my refuge, my shelter, my protection, encircling my path forward.
Wow, that is so fantastic, Judy. Talk to us about it.
Well, first of all, I must introduce myself, and I am so unbalancedly left-brained that I fall over to the side. So this whole process has been delightful. And even this one, I practiced a
That's
little.
an amazing image, Judy. I have to just say that's just fantastic.
And so this whole thing is new. And then when I thought I would talk about embracing and love, that was like a big leap, because I felt like I don't talk that way. I don't even think that way. But I looked at the psalm, I thought I'll practice it. So part of this has been an experiment. The other thing was when I started to do it, it felt really flat to me. And then I had an experience that enraged me and made me so upset, I don't know how else to say it, that I realized that's what I'm talking about. And I was able to incorporate the experience into this. I only wrote only one song came, and that was Psalm 3 when I started writing Absalom. That spoke to me. All the others, I had to sit down and say, let's look at the psalm, let's look at the structure. What is the psalmist trying to say? How does that relate to me?
Fantastic.
But I've been pleased because I'm
really, and it comes off. The rage is fantastic, and the expressing that kind of disgust and the struggle to find where that refuge comes from is real. It's a struggle. It's not easy. And and again, that small step, that feeling like these are very small steps towards freedom. We are all enslaved by ourselves, and they're very small steps that we can hope to take.
Well, I like just one thing. I liked when I said something about earplugs won't work and a respirator won't work. I thought that was so like today.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really very much of this moment. I love it, Judy. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Larry Finkelstein.
So this is my first one.
Wow, great.
So be gentle or not. And,
I think we're pretty gentle here. I think we're a pretty gentle crowd.
We are being played. Do not listen to his words, nor attend his ramblings. Do not wait for his afternoon folly, for a speaker such as him, seeking approval with his lies and false facts, shall not waste our time in these endless days. When he views the speaker of truth and reason as his enemy, and hears the fake news of his mind only after it escapes his uncontrolled mouth, as they lead to ever-increasing graves, without words of solace or compassion, which we can find only by remaining locked in our homes, with thoughts of one day returning to worship in your house with our community. Enable us, O Lord, to cast off his trappings of power and to watch as he falls by the wayside.
Tell us about writing it.
So I never thought I would write one of these. I haven't written something like this since Far Rockaway High School, Nina Luban. And on Thursday, once we finished going through the Psalms, I just said, this is speaking to me now, to me right now. And I just picked up my pad and began writing. It just came out. I didn't even get up from in front of the computer on Thursday. It just flowed. And then I read it and I said, well, I'm not even sure I want to share it because, I mean, this is not something that I've done or feel comfortable doing. And in this class with so many talented people and people who have this ability to express their emotions, you know, maybe this isn't exactly the right thing, but I said, no, that it is. This is what, it was amazing that this psalm could reach out after how many thousands of years and find me today. And that's what I wanted to express.
I think it's fantastic. And I love, first of all, that this is your first thing that you've written like this since high school. How fantastic is that? But can you put it up on the screen, Harold? Because there are a couple of phrases I want to refer to that I can't remember by memory. So, Larry, this is actually in great psalm structure, and you're describing evil. This is when the psalmists are using language about evildoers, and they're using the language of the day 2,500 years ago, but you are describing evil as we're experiencing it today. That is fantastic. And you're also giving, as we saw in the first psalm in particular, kind of wisdom about how to respond to the evil that you'll find in the world. So this is just perfectly in psalm tradition. And I think we get it. We understand what evil is because we're living with evil right now, just as the psalmist they were living with evil and teaching us how to avoid it and how to rise above it, and asking for God's help to not to cast off those power, and also the aspirational. We want to be able to live to see him be fall by the wayside, right? So it's beautiful, and it's another fantastic expression of the moment we are in. And as I've said, some of the Psalms will be deeply rooted in a historical moment, and you can almost suss out what's going on around the psalmist. And other Psalms are completely unrelated to any particular moment. And that's, the body of Psalms ranges vastly in that particular way. So I love it, Larry. Keep going. Don't stop.
I'll try. Thank you.
And really, the place to go is to keep going back to the Psalm. So that's fantastic.
So, Rabbi, your choice. We have two last offerings, one by Sarah and one Darina. We can do them right now and then move on.
Would people be willing to hang in for a few more minutes so we could complete Psalm 5? Adria, do you have to go? So if you can hang in, can everybody raise your hand if you're willing to hang in? So we'll finish.
I see we're hanging.
Okay, so let's do it. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Psalm 5 on a staycation Sunday.
Love that.
When I see the word Lamanatseach, a sexy Israeli singer awakens the baby dyke in me. I was 4 when Geula Gil sang that word, and it would be another 11 years before I found redemption, geula, in the arms of another girl. What of the mystery word? Hanechilot. We're told it's a musical instrument. Might it be the female plural for some ancient organ? Might a long ago counterpart of Geula Gil be summoning God, the ultimate conductor, to recognize ancient female organs? My family found an album at a Fairfield County tag sale in the early 70s, Romantic Organ Moods. The cover featured a prissy yet ecstatically smiling, bouffanted woman of the early 60s. I didn't get it till I was older. And then I had more proof. We're the funniest family ever, if not the most appropriate. Socially distant in Montclair's Brookdale Park yesterday, my eldest sister, Deb, and I discussed God, while at least a third of the park goers breezed by sans mask. I like God because I like believing in magic, I said. And besides, I think God is just me when I'm at my best. It's the other side of the coin. The side that Rabbi Kleinbaum offered was when you struggle with how to write about evil people in Psalms, think of them as your own demons, that should be lowercase, that you struggle with. So God is me and the demons are me. Now I can deal with Psalm 5's bulk. Listen to yourself, Sarah. Listen like Katie Lang talking to herself in her song, The Mind of Love. Pay attention to your voice's sadness under the humor. Pray to your best self. Hear yourself this morning. You've already been lying awake for hours. You lie in wait for your worst self. Because you brook no evil, your daily pledge, be kind and loving toward all. People at their bottom, including you 30 plus years ago, are viewable only when you can avoid seeing them for long. You hate the visible evil that lowest points provoke. You're doomed when you lie or character assassinate yourself and others, or deny the truth, any truth, and then hate yourself. But the kind and loving best version of yourself holds the door for your genuine humility, which too often lets your ego push past to seek everyone's adoration, including yours. Oh, Sarah, be your own role model, refusing self-doubt enemies. Follow the map, even as you bridle at following directions. Self-doubt disguised as humility, and not the genuine sort, tries to bury your voice alive, but its seductive and ultimately smarmy lips can't compete with your earnestness. Cancel is what your friend says her therapist tells her to say when she has negative thoughts, Sarah. Most of the evil has already fallen away, but character assassination of your own character still lingers. Shake it off, the self-doubt and self-nastiness. Cancel. Count your blessings, then cuddle and celebrate yourself. Sarah, do yourself a favor and be your own superhero.
Wow, what an arc to this poem. What an arc. Tell us about writing it, Sarah.
So I really was feeling playful. It was good to have a vacation this past week, and I really was intrigued by what is hanechilot. Mm-hmm. And so I did play with that. It did bring back some memories from childhood. But then I when I got the playfulness out of the way, I almost pulled out the first half and just said, just start where you start with the psalm itself. But no,
it's a wonderful arc.
Yeah, what we were saying is I'll just say, we're all, I'm a roller coaster moment to moment. And sometimes I'm playful and horny and sad and thrilled and and I guess that's always life, but it's acutely so right now in this pandemic. So, and exhausted also. I don't remember because I can't see the words, but I think that's enough so that Dorina can go.
I love it. And I love the honesty and the rootedness. And there you're using things that are actual literal stories that you're telling, which is fantastic. And then it emerges, the later part emerges into kind of the learning from it all, which is beautiful. So thank you, Sarah.
Dorina, if you will read yours.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. afraid this is more motto than Psalm 5, but that's just the direction in which I went. Above it, I have been there. I have walked that route that started with, "My Lord, if you exist," and ended it with, "Please let me go, my Father." It was a church, that temple where I stood one last time to say those final words. Try to go in peace amid my anger. And will I enter? Will I have the chance to actually physically enter that distant synagogue where I found refuge? My Lord, no matter whether you exist, I love your house for your people's sake. And where your people are, there is your house. In the abundance of your loving kindness, I have already entered.
Wow. Talk to us, Darina. Tell us about writing it.
It actually tells a very long story of my past experience with religion after I was raised as an atheist. And I tried that was under the communist regime. We were all expected to be atheists. And then at some much later stage, after the fall of the regime, I tried to be a Christian of the traditional kind here. And maybe I managed it for a while in my own way, until I got disappointed in that church, and that was it. I just went to say goodbye in a strange mix of anger and residual respect, and I never came back to that church building, although I still miss it, the building itself as a safe space. But I don't miss the church as an institution or the religion behind it. And then, at a time of grief and defeat, I found you. And I found refuge in this synagogue that isn't exactly my temple. And Mato, with my song of entry, did at least virtually as a foreigner, but still feeling at home with you and loving your temple because of you. And then, where is the synagogue when we're all scattered in different places? What is the synagogue? It's us.
Wow, so moving. I'm so deeply moved by this, Darina, and you being part of this community and what you're bringing to it, and that your piece is very, very, very moving. Your house and the story profound. What a way to end our study of Psalm 5, although it will keep bubbling up. And don't stop writing about Psalm 5 if Psalm 5 continues to inspire. But tomorrow we are going to start, Harold is going to teach a little bit at the beginning about the Septuagint, and then we will begin Psalm 6 tomorrow. So this afternoon, if you get a chance, I think Harold sent around Psalm 6 for folks to be reading just the Hebrew and the English, just work it through, and we'll begin Psalm 6 tomorrow. So thank you, each of you, for sharing such great depths of your soul, your hearts, your lives. It's so moving. A big, big applause to everybody.
And given the time, Julia has ceded her time, and we will end with Darina's offering, if that's okay.
Beautiful. Yes, beautiful. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for hanging in there for a little extra time. Love to all.
Okay, bye-bye.